The sun shone brightly over Ojil village, casting golden rays across the palm trees and thatched rooftops. It was the wedding of the year. Ajiri, the only daughter of Chief Onos, was marrying Bodhi, a wealthy cocoa merchant from Abeokuta. Guests arrived in droves, adorned in rich oak and vibrant ankara, their laughter echoing through the air like church bells. The scent of jollof rice, goat meat, and fried plantains wafted through the compound, mingling with the sharp perfume of hibiscus flowers. Ajiri stood in front of her mirror, dressed in a breathtaking white lace gown, her face a blend of excitement and nerves. Her bridesmaids fluttered around her like butterflies, adjusting her veil, touching up her makeup. Her mother, Mama Alice, wiped away tears of joy, whispering prayers under her breath. Outside, the drums beat louder. Bodhi, dressed in a regal suit, smiled for the camera as he awaited his bride. Nothing could ruin this day, or so everyone thought. Just as the pastor raised his Bible to begin the vows, a sharp scream cut through the air. The crowd turned toward the back of the compound where a waiter stood, trembling and pointing at something behind the palm trees. Moments later, two men dragged out a lifeless body, face down, in a torn suit, his white shirt soaked with blood. Gasps turned to chaos as guests ran for cover, women clutched their pearls, and Chief Onos fainted on the spot. It wasn't just any body. It was Donald, the groom's best man. The wedding was over before it began. But that wasn't the worst part. As Ajiri stood frozen at the altar, her eyes locked with Bodhi's, and in that brief second, she saw something. A flicker. Guilt. Or fear. And just like that, the perfect day became a bloody beginning. Because in Ojil village, secrets never stay buried. The sun had barely set when the police sealed off the compound with yellow tape, turning the once joyous event into a crime scene. The villagers watched from behind the gates, whispering and pointing as officers questioned guests and took photos of Donald's bloodied body. The groom, Bodhi, was seated under a canopy, his face buried in his hands. But to Ajiri, his silence screamed louder than any of the villagers. Mama Alice clutched her daughter's hand tightly, trying to shield her from the madness, but Ajiri kept looking around, searching for something or someone. Then she saw him. A tall man in a dark kaftan stood at the gate, leaning against the pillar with a face she couldn't forget. It was Emeka, her ex-lover, the one she had ghosted 2 years ago when her father arranged her courtship with Bodhi. What was he doing at her wedding? Why now? Emeka's eyes met hers across the chaos. He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just stared. Ajiri's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of buried memories. She excused herself and walked over, her dress trailing behind her like a wounded ghost. "You shouldn't have come," she said, barely above a whisper. "I told you, he's not who you think he is," Emeka replied, his voice cold and calm. Before she could ask what he meant, 2 officers approached them. "Do you know this man?" one asked Ajiri. She hesitated. "No," she said quickly, but her eyes betrayed her. The officer eyed Emeka suspiciously and took down his name before walking away. Emeka gave Ajiri one last look. "Ask Bodhi where he was last night," he said. "Then decide who you want to protect." Ajiri's breath caught. Suddenly, her wedding day wasn't just tragic, it was dangerous. And Emeka had just reopened a door she thought she'd locked forever. The next morning, the village woke to headlines that spread faster than the harmattan wind: "Murder at Ojil wedding, best man found dead." The news had reached nearby towns, and so had the whispers, about Chief Onos's family curse, about Ajiri's jilted lovers, about Bodhi's mysterious past. But inside the Onos compound, silence pressed heavy like a wet blanket. Ajiri sat on the veranda, still in her wedding robe, her untouched plate of yam porridge growing cold. Her mind raced with Emika's words, "Ask Bodhi where he was last night." She remembered how Bodhi had been unreachable from 10 p.m. till dawn before the wedding. When she'd asked, he'd simply said he was handling surprises for the big day. That excuse now felt paper-thin. Later that afternoon, Ajiri confronted him in the study. "Bodhi, where were you the night before our wedding?" she asked, her voice trembling. Bodhi looked up slowly from his phone. "Why are you asking me that?" "Because your best man is dead. And people are starting to talk." He stood and walked toward the window. "Donald and I had a fight that night," he confessed. He threatened to expose something. "But I didn't kill him, Ajiri. I swear it." "Expose what?" she asked sharply. But Bodhi hesitated. That silence gave Ajiri her answer. He was hiding something, and it wasn't just a fight. That night, as the rain fell gently on the zinc roof, Ajiri crept into Bodhi's room while he slept. She opened his briefcase and found an old photo, a group of 4 young men, including Donald and Bodhi, standing outside a building in Lagos. Scrawled on the back in red ink were the words, "What we buried must never be unearthed." Ajiri's hands shook. This wasn't just a murder. It was the resurrection of a secret long buried. And someone had killed to keep it that way. The rain had turned to a drizzle by morning, but Ajiri barely noticed. Her fingers trembled as she held the photo again. The words on the back haunted her, "What we buried must never be unearthed." She needed answers, and she needed them fast. Something told her that Donald hadn't just been a casualty of envy or rage. He had tried to unearth something, and he paid with his life. Ajiri visited the guest room where Donald had stayed the night before the wedding. It hadn't been touched since the murder. A police ribbon still hung across the doorway, but she slipped under it and quietly closed the door behind her. The room smelled like dust and stale perfume. She searched every drawer, every pocket of his suitcase. Nothing. Then her eyes landed on the wooden floorboard near the bed, one plank slightly uneven. She knelt and pressed her fingers against it. With some effort, it popped loose, revealing a narrow hollow space. Inside, wrapped in brown cloth, was a small black journal. Donald's handwriting. Her heart pounded as she flipped it open. "They think I've forgotten what happened in Ikoyi. But I remember. All of us were there, Bodhi, Sei, Folarin, and me. We left her to die. And now, she's back." Ajiri's mouth went dry. Left her to die? Who was she? What had they done? She snapped the book shut and hid it in her bag just as footsteps approached. It was Chief Ono's. "You shouldn't be in here, Ajiri," he said sternly. "Why didn't you tell me Bodhi had secrets like this?" she fired back, voice tight. Chief Ono sighed, rubbing his temple. "Because I knew the truth would destroy this marriage, and this family. Some things are better left buried." But Ajiri had made up her mind. She wasn't going to be another woman lost to secrets. She would read every word of that journal. And when she was done, someone was going to answer for Donald's death. Ajiri barely slept. The journal burned in her mind like a fever. She waited until the compound was quiet before locking her door and lighting the kerosene lamp. Every page of Donald's writing pulled her deeper into a nightmare she had unknowingly married into. Her name was Amaka. She was just 19. We met her during NYSC in Ikoyi. Bright eyes, a soft voice. She trusted Bodhi the most. She thought she loved him. But we were stupid boys, drunk on power. We played with her heart, and when she found out what Bodhi really wanted, it was too late. Ajiri's throat tightened. The entries became darker. Bodhi said we had to scare her. That she was becoming a liability. We drove her to the abandoned well behind the Corpus Lodge. Told her to beg for her freedom. She slipped. Hit her head. We thought she died. We panicked. We buried her behind the well. We made a pact never to speak of it again. Tears welled in Ajiri's eyes. A dead girl. Covered up by 4 boys who'd grown into powerful men. And now one of them, Donald, was murdered. Was it guilt that made him keep this journal? Or fear? The next morning, Ajiri took a kiki to the town's small library. She searched online archives, scrolling through old newspapers. After an hour, she found it. Amaka Nwosu, 19, reported missing in Ikoyi in 2015. Last seen during NYSE posting. Case went cold. Her photo stared back, young, pretty, hopeful. Gone without justice. As Ajiri stepped outside, she nearly collided with Emeka. "I warned you," he said. They tried to silence her. Now they're silencing each other. "You knew?" she asked, voice breaking. "I was there the day they buried her. I didn't help, but I didn't stop them either. That's my sin." Ajiri stared at him in horror. Emeka wasn't just a witness, he was part of the silence. And if Amaka had truly returned, she wasn't coming for justice. She was coming for revenge. The village was still reeling from the murder of Donald when another tragedy struck. 2 days later, during the early morning sweep of the compound by local police, a foul smell led them to the garden behind Chief Ono's guest house. There, hidden beneath a mound of fresh earth and hibiscus flowers, they found the body of Sei, another of Bodhi's old university friends. His mouth was stuffed with dried cassava leaves, his hands twisted behind him, and his eyes wide open in a frozen stare. A strange symbol, crudely drawn in ashes, was etched on his chest, a circle with a vertical line slashed through it. Ajiri's scream pierced the sky as she collapsed into Emeka's arms. The police declared the compound cursed. Guests fled the village in droves. The once busy halls of the Ono's mansion turned silent. Mama Alice locked herself in the prayer room. Chief Ono's took ill. And Bodhi, he didn't cry. He didn't mourn. He only grew more distant. Ajiri cornered him later that evening in the now-deserted reception hall. "2 of your friends are dead. One confessed everything in a journal. Amaka wasn't just a name, was she?" Bodhi's hands trembled. "We thought she died. We were stupid. It was an accident." "No, Bodhi. Burying her like an animal was a choice. And someone, something, is making you all pay." He paced the floor, wild-eyed. "I've seen her, Ajiri. In my dreams. In reflections. She wears the same dress she died in. Blood on her temple. She says, 'You left me there. You left me cold.'" Ajiri's breath caught. "You need to tell the truth," she whispered. "Before another body drops." But Bodhi only shook his head. "It's too late. You don't understand. Amaka isn't coming for justice. She wants us to feel what she felt. Alone. Trapped. Buried." And as the wind howled through the broken windowpane, a low moan echoed through the compound, a sound too human to be the wind, but too inhuman to be ignored. Thunder rolled across the sky as the compound plunged into an eerie silence. Ajiri sat huddled in her room, the journal clenched to her chest like a shield. Rain lashed against the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a door creaked open. Or was that a cry? She wasn't sure anymore. Every sound now felt like Amaka reaching through the veil, seeking vengeance. That night, she made a decision. If no one else would confront the past, she would. With a raincoat over her shoulders and a flashlight in hand, she left the house under the cover of darkness. Emeka was waiting by the gate. "You're going back to the well, aren't you?" he asked. Ajiri nodded. "I need to see where they left her." The journey to the abandoned Corpus Lodge in Ikoyi was slow and tense. The building had long been overtaken by weeds and silence. Behind it, just as Donald had described, stood the forgotten well, now covered with rusted zinc sheets and broken bricks. The air felt heavy, thick with unsaid things. Ajiri knelt by the spot, brushing away debris. "This is where they buried her." "She deserved better," Emeka whispered. "We all failed her." Ajiri's flashlight flickered. She tapped it and shone it around the site, then gasped. A shallow mound of disturbed earth lay a few feet away. The soil was fresh. Recently dug. They moved closer, and there it was, a bone, pale against the red earth. Beside it, a necklace. The same one Amaka wore in the photo from the missing persons article. "She's still here," Ajiri whispered, tears streaming down her face. Suddenly, a sharp gust of wind tore through the trees, and with it, a voice, soft, mournful, unmistakable. "You left me here." Emeka fell to his knees, sobbing. Ajiri turned to run, but standing at the edge of the trees was a figure, drenched in rain, face shadowed, eyes glowing faintly. "Amaka?" she breathed. The figure didn't answer. Just raised one hand slowly and pointed, not at Emeka. At her. Ajiri froze as the figure stepped closer, the rain falling harder now like a warning from the heavens. The woman's long white dress clung to her body, soaked and stained. Her face, once youthful in the old newspaper photo, now carried a ghostly stillness, pale, with hollow eyes that shimmered like wet coal. "Why, me?" Ajiri whispered, backing away. "I didn't hurt you." The figure, Amaka, tilted her head. Her voice was soft, almost childlike. "You married the devil who buried me. You chose to wear the rings of blood." Ajiri trembled. "I didn't know. I only found out after the wedding. I swear." Emeka rose shakily to his feet. "Take me instead." I stood by. I was a coward. But Amaka only stared at him, then slowly turned her eyes back to Ajiri. She knew, and stayed. She saw the truth, and kept the ring on her finger. Ajiri's breath caught. She looked down at her wedding ring, suddenly realizing its weight. Not just a symbol of love, but a chain of silence. Guilt coursed through her veins. Was silence a crime? Was loving someone without knowing their darkness a sin? Before she could speak again, Amaka vanished. No thunder, no scream, just gone. In the weeks that followed, the Ono's compound fell into ruin. Bodhi disappeared the night after Sei's funeral. Some said he fled to Ghana. Others whispered that Amaka took him. His body was never found. Emeka confessed everything to the police, including the journal. He was arrested and became the face of a reopened cold case. Ajiri left the village and moved to Benin City, but she never remarried. She started an NGO in Amaka's name, offering legal aid to young women and families of missing persons. Still, sometimes, on stormy nights, she dreams of a girl in white, standing at the edge of her bed, whispering, "No one is innocent." And Ajiri believes her. Because now she knows, the real horror wasn't just the murder. It was the silence that followed.